Hi guys, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Behind the Grill podcast. I hope we're all well, and I hope you all enjoyed the first episode. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Josh. Josh, say hello.
How you doing?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Keeping well.
So, for those of you that might not know, Josh is the wicket keeping coach on Instagram. I'll leave his links in the description, and actually, I might just put them just here. Yeah, we're going to have a little chat to Josh, all things keeping. We're going to find out some stuff about where he is, what he's been doing, and again, like the last episode, just talk about some topical questions, and then our funny segments at the end. So, Josh, if you just want to sort of tell the podcast who you are, what you do, we'll get going from there.
So my name's Josh Sivier. I'm the wicket keeping coach. I've played as a keeper for the past sort of 10, almost 15 years now. Got my level 3 a couple of years back. I was like, I've got to do something with this. So yeah, I thought, you know what? I love keeping. There aren't too many people around who sort of focus specifically on keeping, so it's quite a niche. And then was like, yeah, let's put it on Instagram. And after the first Instagram got taken down, I very quickly learned about copyright and things like that. So yeah, it was a big learning curve to start off with, but yeah, loving it. Feel like I'm starting to get my hang around what actually keeping is, which is good.
Yeah, I mean that'd be handy. It's the wicket keeping coach, wouldn't it?
That's it.
I just want to ask first about your level 3.
Yep.
It's something that I know a few people have done it. It's something I'd love to do in the future. I'm only a level 2 coach at the moment, but kind of, can you explain the process of the level 3 course and how it works?
Sure. So I applied initially. It was the first sort of girls and women's focused course that the ECB had run. Then I applied, sort of went through filled in an application form about what I did, and at the time I was working in a school with boys and girls, so there was a push for the girls' side to sort of come into play. So yeah, managed to get onto the sort of interview day. So went to a school near Reading for that. Had an interview with the head of women and girls cricket for Berkshire at the time, and then yeah, had to throw a few balls, throw a sidearm every now and then, and then yeah, just do a few coaching drills and things like that, and then yeah, made it on there. Then the course itself was brilliant. First half was at the Oratory, where I did the interview in Reading. So spent a week there, working through different modules. There was keeping, batting, all the sorts of S&C. There was another one all about sort of the psychology sides of things, which was really interesting. And then we did the second half a couple of months later at Derbyshire's ground, which was fantastic. So yeah, a really good experience. Great to also meet very like-minded coaches. It was equally as important. And speaking to the people who sort of ran the coaching and things like that has helped me from getting it, being able to sort of talk to people, like Simon Guy ran the wicket keeping module. And so once we'd finished the course, I messaged him on Instagram, and then we had a bit of a Zoom just like this, where I asked him a few more bits. So yeah, it was really valuable, not only for the content that was on the course, but also the fact that you create so many links from that.
Yeah, it's networking. Like I was saying to coaches that I work with, like, it's coaching. It's not what you know, it's who you know. That's a lot with life actually, but I've noticed the cricket coaching world is a very small world. I do a bit of work down at Lords as a coach down there, and there were the lads that I was coaching with down there that knew people that I knew, and that circle is so small. And what I love as well is that the difference with cricket compared to other sports is that you do get that contact time with these people, like Simon Guy taking the time to speak to you about cricket and stuff, and these highly qualified, highly professional coaches, players are willing to give up their time. And you wouldn't necessarily get that with other sports, would you?
No, absolutely. Funnily enough, this morning, I had messaged Mark O'Leary, who has worked with the Cambridge University teams and also with the Welsh Fire. I messaged him last night about I wanted to learn more about some things that he did with Keepers Stood Back. And then he was like, just give me a ring. So I rang him this morning and we just had a chat about it. And I think that's the brilliant thing, is that all the coaches that I've spoken to are really willing to share their ideas. The same with, the way I do things on my Instagram and when I do coaching is that I make a point to explain exactly what I'm doing. The same with like when I coach and there are parents as well, I explain exactly what I'm doing, the reason why I'm doing it, because if they've got a traffic cone and a couple of PVC foam tubes, they can pretty much emulate what I do in their back gardens and in their cricket clubs, so that the more people that have an understanding of how we coach and the reason why we do things, the more help that these players can get, which is at the end of the day the most important thing.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said on my last podcast, and we're all sponges. We soak up and absorb so much knowledge and so many drills and so many ideas and stuff, and we're constantly nicking ideas. And I think this is the beauty of certainly your page and other pages that are like it, where we share our ideas and I go, oh, quite like that one, I'm going to nick that and use that in my session. And it's not, I don't think it's we need to credit this person for doing this, because we all do it. We just we steal stuff and then maybe tweak it to make it our own in that way. But I think that's what I love about coaching, and I love about this environment, is that everyone's kind of on the same page. We can just constantly steal stuff, and it works quite nicely.
That's it. I'm a teacher by trade, and we call it magpieing because it sounds a lot less harsh.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about sharing ideas, isn't it? The more that we talk and the more that we communicate with other coaches, the better we become as coaches ourselves, and that is the key thing.
100%. So just talk to me a little bit about your current coaching, like where do you coach at the moment, who you working with, those kind of things.
So at the moment, I live in Basingstoke, and so at the moment I'm doing a bit of, I've done some work at Eversley, being just up the road. It's half term at the moment, so I've sort of given a day. So I've got a coaching day on Friday for about 6 hours or so. And yeah, it's a combination of players who have played cricket for 20 years or so that want a couple of extra tips. I've got a couple of under 11s, under 13s looking to break into that county setup. A lot of the children I coach are looking for that second skill. So I find with especially county age groups, you've got to have two skills, unless you are scoring runs heavily and taking poles like it's no one's business. You need that second skill to really break into those setups. And keeping's a very good way of doing that. So I've worked with a good few under 11, under 12, under 13 children who are really keen to push that second skill and give them a sort of fighting chance at the top. I was never in a sort of county setup as a youngster. Very much started as a little 12-year-old watching the 2005 Ashes and thinking, wow, this is wicked. And then just sort of plied my trade at a club level. But yeah, it seems like a bit of a grueling system, where because there aren't a great deal of spots, you've really got to try and shine above the rest. So yeah, I've been working with a fair few keepers on just trying to get the basics right. I do a lot of work on setup, making sure that we're in the right place, especially stood up. I find at an age group level, if you can stand up to the stumps effectively, you are an absolute game changer.
Yeah,
and
I'd agree.
As county coaches, I can imagine what they're looking at is those people that can change the game. And if you can stand up to the two opening bowlers, then you're going to make a big impact. And the amount of stumpings that you'll get is ludicrous.
Oh yeah, at that level, yeah, especially like, yeah, the two skills is interesting. So I'm a lead coach for Suffolk under 15 girls, and I was amazed at the amount of girls that came to the setup that were all rounders, very strong at batting, strong or strong enough in bowling. So yeah, that double skill is I wouldn't say it's necessary to get into that gig, but it's very helpful. And I guess those kind of players at that age, if you're well rounded at one, you tend to be well rounded in the other. And yeah, they're good. They're really good, really good. And what I love about those kind of people is especially at that age, is the time and the effort and the thought process they go through to want to learn. It's the will to learn, I think. I can give so much advice. I didn't play at same as you. I didn't play at county age group level. Just play club cricket, and then the club I play for now, I was lucky enough to play first team cricket for them, but that was a step way too above my pay grade. But these girls, and actually people that we work with that are that level, it's their willingness to learn and their drive, and they care. They really care, and I think that's what I love about that job is you're facilitating their progress and their learning and their journey, because they come to you, they go, I want to work on this, I want to look at this, and as coaches we go, yeah, we can do that, that's easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the people that really sort of shone for me, I work with Jackson, who's the cricket kid on Instagram. I did 2 hours with him, and from my point of view, 2 hours is a slog. To do 2 hours of keeping, my legs would be like jelly by the end of it. Yeah. But he just wanted to keep going and keep going. And his dad was telling me that it's all his drive. He's not being forced to do any of this. He watched Sarah Taylor do some keeping a few years ago and was like, that's what I want to do, and has sought out every opportunity. They live at the top of sort of the bottom of Cheshire, and he goes to the Rajasthan Royals Academy down in Surrey every now and then, because he just wants to learn. Yeah. Any sort of masterclass, he'll be there. And yeah, just never stops. It's remarkable. Yeah, it's really impressive. What I found as well is like the standard has shot up over the past few years, in particularly with the girls age group side of things. So I work with the Berkshire women and girls on Saturday, just doing a couple of hours of keeping, and the standard of those keepers is exceptional.
Yeah,
really has come on, which is brilliant for the game. Absolutely brilliant.
I think as well. Yeah, I've noticed the same. This is kind of so between me and a guy called Rob Southall, shout out Rob, he's a legend. We look after Suffolk 15s up to the ladies first team, and the two keepers that we work with in the first team, well, the under 18 keepers, but the first team, they're amazing. Their skill set is, and it's their willingness to just throw themselves in the deep end. I'll be side arming in a net, and they're standing up, and I'm not holding back. And it's just their bravery that they're willing just to get in line and take some catches, and their skill set's incredible. And and it's really opened my eyes. And I think, you know, as you said, the ladies' game at the moment is blooming. And I love as well what you said about Jackson, about how he saw Sarah Taylor keep, and I think having a boy having a female role model in that sense is fantastic, and that is just showing where the game is going at the moment. You know, we had it with the 100 in the summer. The boys were happy to watch the London Spirit women's team train. They were like, "Oh, it's Heather Knight, it's whoever else," and I just think it's brilliant. It's fantastic.
So I think that really helped. That tournament really helped for the exposure of women's cricket as well, especially having the sort of double headers with the women's fixture first and the men's after. I'd love to see it the other way around, if I'm honest. Yeah. Get the men's fixture done early on, and then the finale of the women's fixture. I think, you know, it's a perfectly reasonable idea. But yeah, I think the exposure that especially children nowadays have to both the men's and the women's side of the game is brilliant.
100%. Just going on Jackson, the cricket kid. So I saw his that reel or that TikTok that just boomed. It was a hell of a grab. The one that's got like 2 million views.
Oh yeah, with the catching cradle.
Yeah. Oh mate, I was like, what? How? How? You've briefly mentioned him about, you know, his work ethic and stuff. What kind of things are you kind of drilling into him? So he's not that old, is he? He's quite young, isn't he?
I think 10 maybe 11.
So for someone of a skill set of a really high skill set, what kind of things even though he's 10 or 11, what kind of things are you trying to drill into him about his keeping?
For me, it's just keeping movements efficient, so that I've like I say, I've worked a lot on setup and things like that, and I did the same with him when we did a session together, making sure when we're stood up to those stumps, our head is on that 4th, 5th stump line. I feel like the put your left foot on off stump sort of coaching method is slowly fading away, and I think that works a lot better, because I'm 6'3". I'm not a small keeper by any means, but if my left foot's on off stump, my hands start, you know, almost at the wide line, you know. So I think just making sure that your head and hands are in that 4th, 5th stump line, like you see a lot of the professional keepers do at the moment. It means that you cover a lot of ground across the offside and quite a lot down the leg side as well, where you actually don't need to move.
Yeah.
So just making sure your head and hands work together. Again, trying to keep those movements efficient. I posted something a few days ago about that little movement to the right with your right foot. This is to a right-hander if you're stood up to the stumps. That little step allows you to reach massively further, but keeps you still nice and close to the stumps. So we worked a lot on that, just keeping those movements as efficient as we can, because you'll find that you actually don't need to move very much when you're stood up to the stumps. You've got that little step to the offside, and then you've got your shuffle down the leg side, but everything else you should be able to catch within that area that you start off with. And I think, you know, we've got a hard job as it is, having to focus on every ball, especially coming down to you at the speed that they do, with the distraction of the batter as well, and then we've got to catch it cleanly. I think if we minimize the movements that we actually have to make, it becomes so much easier. For me, it's all about the less amount of moving parts just benefits you everything, because if you're moving your feet too much, then the likelihood is you're rising unnecessarily, or your eyes aren't going to be level, and then the catching itself, which is the main thing, becomes almost a secondary thing, because you've got to worry about everything else first.
100%.
So efficient movement is key. Looking to catch, let's say we've got stumps here. I'm looking to catch along this line, no matter where the ball is. I can't explain it well without sort of having stumps to show you. But what I try and show is that if I've got some fusion stumps, yes. And the back of the base, you've got to imagine that there's a line that runs all the way along from, you know, one edge of the field to the other.
Yeah.
That is the line that we want to be catching that ball on every time.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's on the leg side, it doesn't matter if it's low to your offside, it doesn't matter if it's up here. We want to be catching everything on that line, because if we catch everything on that line, taking things back to the stumps becomes so much easier.
Yeah, I get you. So
that's where my talk about strong hands comes in. Which has faced numerous opposition over the past couple of months. That's where the idea of strong hands comes in, because if you catch a ball, you've then got a minimal distance to go back to the stumps. And whilst we don't play with cameras and things like that from square leg, and you know, you end up having any old umpire who sometimes aren't even watching, you know, it doesn't make a massive amount of difference. But to have those strong hands in order to make that stumping effectively for the times when they could be looking, you know, it makes, I think it's just really beneficial. So we talk about strong hands a lot. Strong hands, basically, I think there's a misconception between your hard hands and your strong hands, and the fact that when I say strong hands, people assume that I'm pushing towards the ball, right? Which isn't true. I think what people need to realize is that, you know, you're not catching a cannonball here. I did an analysis of one of Alex Davis's stumpings at the back end of the county season, and that was the exact thing I got from an old pro. He was like, you know, it's brilliant, but he's not catching a cannonball. And I was like, that's exactly the point. You know, the days of catching a ball and going this way are gone.
Yeah,
because you don't need to.
No,
there's no reason for you to give that much for a ball that firstly weighs 160 grams, and then secondly the fact that you're wearing, you know, padded gloves. I'm not entirely sure about the physics behind it, but your arms will naturally act as a sort of spring anyway, as it settles in. And if you catch the ball there, the distance to the stumps is minimal. Rather than if you catch a ball and bring it back here, you've then got to go all the way back round to take the ball back to the stumps. And that, you know, that distance could be the distance between someone's foot being up, someone's foot being down, or being ever so slightly out of the crease and back in. So we look at strong hands a lot. I use a couple of weighted balls for that. We work down from the heaviest one to the lightest, just working on catching that ball and taking it back to the stumps. So we increase the hand speed at the same time. I think that works really well. And then when it comes to any wicketkeeper, so I feel like I've spoken a lot. I enjoy talking about it. The key thing is just making sure that head's in line.
Yeah.
Naturally, with wicket keeping, will go, there's a ball coming and I want to get my head out of the way, because it's a natural instinct. The same way if someone's bowling a bouncer, naturally we'll have that instinct to try and get out of the way. And it's all about overcoming that and moving to a certain position, for example, where you can play that hook or that pull. And for the keeping, it's just about, can we keep our head in line no matter where that ball is, so that our head and hands work together? Because you're going to be a lot more successful catching a ball when your head and hands are in line, rather than if your head's here and your hands are there. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, in terms of fundamentals, review what I've just spoken about and rambled on about. Efficient movement, keeping our head and hands in line, and just keeping our hands nice and strong. It's strong hands is something that people massively don't agree with, which is fine. People are very much entitled to what they think, but I feel that it's such an efficient method of keeping that so many pros are doing now that it just seems like the way to go.
Yeah.
The same people that oppose it are the same people that love MS Dhoni, and MS Dhoni wasn't so much the creator of strong hands, but he was a big advocate for it. And the reason he was so quick is because he caught the ball, and within a fraction of a second, his hands were moving back to the stumps as if it was in one movement. And so that's why the idea comes around, because it's just that you catch the ball, you take it back to the stumps every time.
Yeah.
And to go back this way is just unnecessary. You don't need to. Sorry.
No, it's good. My knowledge on wicket keeping is very minimal, so I'm learning. This is good for me. And as you said with the strong hand debate, cricket's changed. It's changed in the last 3 years. It's changed in the last 10 years. It's changed in the last 20 years. The game is evolving. And I think it's evolving quickly. Gone are the days where in batting we teach kids high elbow, split grip, all this jazz. It's, for me, if I'm teaching a very small child how to hit a ball, I go strong base, fast hands, head still, whack it.
Yeah.
And we teach them that. Then they get when they get a little bit older, they enjoy the fact that they can whack it. And then you can go, okay, let's start looking at more fundamental skills. Can we get your weight into the ball? Okay, can we keep your elbow just a little bit hard to keep that control? Stuff like that. And I think, you've got a valid argument with the strong hands. And following us in Instagram, it's a daily thing. But I don't see an issue with it. And as I say, the game is it's evolving. It's constantly changing. And that kind of old school mentality of coaching is going. But say the way I deliver something like batting is probably completely different to the way that someone maybe delivered it 10 years ago. Certainly going to be different to someone 20 years ago, and it's probably different to loads of people around the country right now. So that's the beauty of coaching. We all have our own different methods, but I think the thing is, if we can justify it and we can go, this is my argument, this is why I want to do it, whether the player kind of accepts that or not, that's down to them, isn't it, really?
That's it. I think I agree with what you're saying, that the game is changed. It's a modern athletic sport now.
100%.
I go on about like a good base as well, and it's because I think that the way that people used to set up with that full crouch where your bum sits below your knee level, if that makes sense, it doesn't work. I don't think it's an effective position to start in, because if your bum sits below your knees, the likelihood is that your weight's trying to go backwards. And what you'll find is that the keepers from there will end up putting themselves into a powerful position once the ball has been bowled. So my argument is, well, why don't we just start in that powerful position to begin with? Because it's almost like kneeling down when you're batting. You wouldn't kneel down and then just before the bowler's coming, get into a powerful position where you're able to move. That's how I see it. I think it's not a mobile position. You couldn't, that sort of old school crouch, you couldn't move from there effectively if you had to. Whereas the setup where the knee bend is at 90 degrees, you're in a powerful position where you're able to move then and there when you need to. Again, it comes down to just trying to be efficient with our movements. You know, can we be in that setup already so that it doesn't take another bit of energy to push ourselves up to then be in that position to then move. Yeah, as you can see, I like being efficient. I think it's a good way of calling myself quite lazy.
Yeah.
But I feel it just makes everything again so much simpler. You know, if you're already in that position, then you haven't got to worry about it, because you've set up, you're there, you're ready to go, whether you're stood back or whether you're ever so slightly low stood up, because we want to be rising with that ball. But yeah, it's just another thing that we don't have to think about. I mean, we can focus on the important bit, which is actually catching the ball in the first place.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's minimalizing movement and effort. We talk about in batting being nice and still, nice and stable. When we're bowling, trying to stay nice and tall, as balanced as possible. These skills are transferable, and I think drumming into young kids and cricketers about those transferable skills, they understand it a lot better. They'll understand that, oh yeah, I need to be balanced when I bat because of this, and this. Oh, I need to be balanced when I bowl. And I don't think it feels like wicket keeping is like its own entity, like it's just there on its own. Well, actually, a lot of the stuff that we do in cricket is transferable. And I think that's what you're saying, is that a lot of the stuff, keeping was its own thing, and you had to do this, you had to do this, you had to do this, that was a bit pointless. But actually, if you look at the fundamental skills of cricket, your balance, your base, your head being still, it transfers into keeping as well. And if we are, as coaches, emphasizing those fundamentals, then I don't think we can go wrong, can we?
No, that's it. I got there was a story from Stephen Croft, who's just started his own coaching setup, that he tagged me in, and he was talking about, you know, is it fine for the slip fielders to emulate the wicket keepers in their stance and their setup? And I was like, actually, it needs to be the other way around, because we at the end of the day, we're just another fielder, and you know, emulating the positions that the slips are in is fantastic, because they need to be in that mobile position to be able to move and be able to push off the exact same way that we would. So I think the modern, quote unquote, the modern keeper is actually, you know, just another fielder, really, who just has the gloves. You know, the stances are the same. You know, you'd catch with strong hands if you're stood as a keeper in second slip or in the covers. You know, it needs to be a more overarching thing that, you know, we're actually just all a fielding unit, and keeping is very similar to the positions that we get into, no matter where we are on the field. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I think it makes sense. I'm not confused yet. I'm easily confused as well.
Good.
I think, yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying, and it is really interesting to gauge these ideas. Where next for the wicket keeping coach?
That's a very good question. As we get outside, the plan is to do a good amount of sort of outdoor sessions. I'd love to do a couple of more group work, just because I find that when there's others around, there are people who can add distractions. We do a lot of resistance work, so are able to literally pull that person back so they can work on keeping their base nice and secure. I think that'd be the next thing that I'd really like to push with, sort of small group sessions. The plan is to run a few wicket keeping specialized camps. I know there's a guy called Mark Costin, who plays out of Berkhamsted, and he ran a few last summer, and I think the numbers he got for keepers who were keen to improve their skills was phenomenal. So I'd love to be able to do that. A key thing I'd like to do is have an evening for adult keepers, because one thing I found tricky once I left school was the fact that I was on my own, and it wasn't until I found a club called Wargrave, which is just outside of Reading, who had a real specific focus on improving you as a player as well, rather than just, you have a hit for a bit, you catch a few balls and then you play on a Saturday. They really invested time into improving you as a cricketer all round, because you invested in their ethos of the club, of where they wanted to go, and then they put time into you as a result. And so I think to have a time where the adult keepers, who don't often get that sort of school-based coaching, and the focus that you would get at a under 17, under 15 level at a club, I think is really important. So yeah, I'd love to do sort of an adult session where we can come down and share ideas and just catch a few balls, because I think that's an element that does get missed. As soon as you become 18, you're like, well, there you go. It's the same with everything, isn't it? You leave school, you do your A levels, and then you're like, right, this is the real world.
Training becomes difficult. Like even now, as a coach, my life is cricket, mainly cricket, and do I have time to hit some balls? Not really. I mean, I'm lucky actually. I managed to schedule in. I do some one-to-one coaching. Weirdly, it's in a farm. It's a farmhouse that's got a net converted. It's the people who created the sidearm actually own the place, which is amazing. Yeah, and I'm there every Saturday morning, and I do just block out kind of a couple of hours to have a hit with a couple of mates, which is good fun. But yeah, you say, like, as soon as you hit 18, training doesn't really exist unless you're at that level where it needs to exist. But also it's interesting. We look at training in that sense, especially winter training. It can be difficult at times, I think, with that fear of overloading players. I've seen it with players where there's that pressure to train all the time and stuff, and if they had taken it a little bit easy in the winter, actually it becomes fruitful in the summer. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on kind of that fear of overtraining in sense of managing youngsters' workloads?
I agree with what you mean, in that there can be times where you end up training just too much. I've never had that issue. I've always been wanting to try and find a few more sessions to fit in for myself. I'm very similar in that, I don't have actually much time to train my own keeping as much as I'd like. But yeah, I think you just got to be careful, don't you? You got to manage it. I find that if you give, same with anyone, you give people too much information to think about, then it ends up being more about the very minute technical aspects rather than doing the job that you actually need to do. I found that if I was having a hit every week or 2 times a week over the winter, then I would get into my own head about my batting, and I just constantly think about it. Oddly, I've never gone that way with keeping. I've always thought, it just it just takes care of itself. Like I was comfortable with it, but it was my batting that would just eat me alive all the time. Even now, you know, as soon as you get out for a score that you're not happy with, you know, I think about how I got out, and it just eats away, which is silly because it's a game. But yeah, I remember just used to get myself in such bad moods because I was so focused on being, you know, the one who scored all the runs and never got out. And of course, it's never works out that way. It's cricket. You know, it's a game that's designed around getting people out. So it's going to happen at some point. But yeah, it's taken me a long time. Even now, I'm 28, and I still think about how I get out. Even in the nets, snicked off first ball on Monday, and I still think about that now. I'm like, why don't I just leave it? Which is totally unnecessary. So I think you've got to be careful of sort of overloading training and things like that. I think it can, if people worry about it or aren't happy and you know, overanalyze things, I think it can sort of just be quite detrimental. So keeping things simple, keeping things fun, you know, challenging but in the right way, I think it's important over the winter. And then just making sure that you smash out the basics. I've spoken to a fair few coaches who are just like, you know, we're working on tennis ball feeds for the first 3-4 weeks because we want to work on the fundamentals of I'm focusing on batting here mainly. You know, we want to focus on the fundamentals of batting and the movements necessary before we then put it into a sort of more match specific environment, which I think is a really good way to go about it, rather than doing what I would do, which is and now just rock up and just have a bit of a swing.
Yeah, well, those of you that follow me on Instagram would have seen I had a hit on Saturday. I got bold and decided to throw my bat against the side of the curtain. Looking back at it now, it's quite funny, but I think it was like the third time I got out and I just had enough. So we are all normal. We are all human. We all do the same things. And the thing I said was, don't do as I say. Don't do as I do. Do as I say. But yeah, we're all normal. We all care. And I agree with like that overanalyzing. A lot of we all do it, but it's very difficult to not. I want to move on to England obviously announced their test squad for the West Indies, and I'm sure you were delighted to see that Mr. Ben Foakes is in the squad and looks like he will have the gloves. Talk to me a little bit about Foakesy, because I think he's been very hard done by, in terms of, we all know he's the best keeper in the country, or one of the best keepers in the country. You might correct me. But he came in on debut, scored 100 against Sri Lanka, and then kind of, I know he had quite a nasty injury, but just talk to me about Foakes and how good he actually is.
I think his ability to make things look incredibly easy is remarkable. But it comes down to the amount of hours that he puts in. You're right. He had a outstanding series. To be fair, those two, it was Sri Lanka and then it was India, wasn't it? You know, his keeping was incredible. I put one on my TikTok not long ago, of one that's just hit the rough way outside leg stump, and then, you know, he's just shot across the leg side and just taken it like it was nothing. I think it comes down to the amount of hard work that he does, but his movements are lightning quick. His hands are extremely relaxed. He's got the way he stands when he stood back is very relaxed around his shoulder, which just allows for everything to sort of flow nicely and very smoothly. But yeah, his ability to sort of pick up line and length and predict what's going to happen with that ball, very similar to how the reason why MS Dhoni was so good was that before the ball had pitched, he knew exactly the level, how high it would bounce. And so he was already there waiting for it before the ball had even arrived or even bounced. There's some great sort of slow-mo things if you find them on YouTube, where he's already in the position and the ball has barely left the bowler's hand, but he can pick the length and he knows exactly where that ball is going to be in order to be able to take the bails off quickly and take that catch. And I think, again, down to the amount that Foakes works on his keeping, there was one a couple of days ago where Alex Stewart's got the bowling machine and he's holding a bat out to get that nick, but it must be about a meter away from him, and it's just firing at him. And Foakes is wearing one of those rugby tackle suits, which it's got to show that if it's going to hit you, it's going to hurt. And yeah, just to be fair, there's your perfect example of strong hands. The video's on Twitter somewhere. If he can stand up to the stumps and catch balls like that and take it back to the stumps where they're firing at you at 60, 70 miles an hour from a good length, then you can catch a ball with strong hands when you're out on the field on a Saturday afternoon. But yeah, I think from what I understand, I think he had it. Yeah, it was quite a nasty injury, wasn't it, at the start of last season, which pretty much wrote him out for the whole of it, which was why I can imagine he wasn't involved in the Ashes party, because he just hadn't had the game time.
Yeah.
And I think it was a brilliant move to bring Billings in, because he was playing regular cricket and he was in form with both the bat and the gloves. And I, definitely deserved that appearance that he did make. So yeah, it'll be great to see him again playing for England. Yeah, I think he's been working hard enough that he's ready to go. And it'll be fantastic to see him. I think Buttler had such an unfortunate series in the Ashes. Like, you could see he wasn't confident. He's clearly an exceptional wicketkeeper, make no doubt about it. But if you haven't got confidence in anything you do, especially at an elite sport level, you're going to get found out.
Yeah. And
I think that's what it came down to. Everyone goes through periods of that. It's the same with batting. Like, if you're lacking confidence in batting, the likelihood is you're not going to make many runs. And the same with bowling. It just happens. I think it's very, especially now with the sort of the quality of the cricketers, I think we're very quick to go, he should be averaging 40 plus. If they're bowling, he should be averaging under 20. And you're taking every single catch that comes your way. But unfortunately, we're human, and sometimes it doesn't work like that. No. And that's fine. I think obviously, because it's such an elite level, everyone's very quick to judge. And he didn't have the best series, and I think Buttler would be the first person to admit that. But I can guarantee he'll be working through all of the mistakes he made in order to right the wrongs for
100%
for the next series coming.
It was horrible. It was really difficult to watch because Buttler is such a likable character as well, and everyone knows how good he is. And I remember watching that drop at Adelaide, and was just like, oh no.
But you could see it. You could see it in your eyes. You can see it in his eyes. You can see like how frustrated and upset he was in himself.
Yeah.
That he dropped it, and we've all dropped catches. It happens.
Pierce just happened to be on the biggest stage in the world in front of millions of people on the TV and 40,000 in an Ashes test.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
But I guarantee he'll bounce back and show everyone again how good he is with the gloves and with the bat. But your question was on about Ben Foakes. I've very much deviated the path.
yeah, it's good to talk about Buttler as well.
So yeah, I think that just the way he's able to see things almost prior to it happening, and the positions that he gets himself into, just make him a fantastic keeper. They've got a proper setup at Surrey by the looks of things. He's your main keeper. You've got Jamie Smith as well. Ollie Pope also keeps. You've got Rory Burns who keeps as well. And I think there's got to be a couple others as well. It's great to see that there's, and I'm sure there is in other counties as well, but there's a proper focus on making those keepers outstanding.
Yeah. I know Essex is my closest county, and I know we're blessed with obviously Adam Wheater, Michael Pepper, and Will Buttleman are kind of the three, and Pepper and Buttleman are the young lads in the side. But they're blessed, and obviously James Foster was outstanding as well before that. Question for you, it might be quite a challenging question. Who in current world cricket do you think is the best keeper, and who is your favourite keeper?
I think the best keeper in the world at the moment is Mohammad Rizwan. I think not only is he just an exceptional keeper in terms of he keeps things very simple. He gets himself in great positions. Again, I talk a lot about positions and keeping things efficient, but that is what it's all about. And I think his mobility, both stood up and stood back, are exceptional. And he's got such good hands, such good hands. Add that to his batting prowess. He is an exceptional cricketer. So I think he leads things at the moment. A lot of call was for Pant to sort of be crowned as, and I can't remember if he was by the ICC.
I think he was.
He certainly took a lot of catches and stumpings and things, more so than I think anyone else. But yeah, I don't feel that he's as well-rounded as I've forgotten his name again, Rizwan. Yeah, I don't think he's as well-rounded as Rizwan. For me, probably my favourite keeper at this very moment in time, probably Sam Billings. I'm a big Foakes fan, but I just think the way Sam Billings sets himself up, how easy he makes everything look, is awesome. He's got a lot of quite specific triggers as well when stood up to the stumps, and I just think it's awesome to see how he's made a couple of things work for him in terms of setting down at the right point where his hands are. I think he's just sort of tweaked bits here and there to make things work for him, and he's reaped the rewards over the past year or so, and he's just an outstanding keeper, really is.
I do like Billings. I really like Billings. I think he's been solid in the county setup for a number of years, and he's proving it on the world stage and playing in these white ball competitions around the world. He getting big bash gig. He's been in the IPL a few years now, and I really like what he's about, actually. And I said on my last podcast, I think he made a massive difference when he came into the side for that Hobart test. Just his energy and his presence. Interesting as well about Pant. I was reading somewhere that there's not rumours, but there's calls for actually that Ishan Kishan is a better keeper player than Pant. And interestingly, I'm just looking at the IPL auction, and Kishan was the most expensive IPL player at the auction, which is interesting actually, because he was with the Mumbai Indians and they've had to rebid for him 15.25 CR, whatever the rupees, whatever the
it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. I know that Livingston is fourth on the list at 11.5, and that was over £1 million. IPL, have you got a team?
Oh, I don't.
Do you not?
It's very much like football. I'm just happy to watch whatever.
Yeah.
And then I just try and find the amount of keeping things that are happening.
Yeah.
Ishan Kishan is a very good keeper. Technically, in my opinion, who am I to say? But in my opinion, technically better than Pant. I find Pant gets himself into trouble quite a lot with the movements that he makes, and he's just about got the sort of agility to get himself out. Same with Quinton de Kock. Like, Quinton de Kock is an absolute athlete. He takes absolute blinders stood back on a regular basis, but it's because whilst as the bowlers release the ball, he's still moving. He's not actually in a stable base as the bowlers, release that ball. But he gets himself out of trouble because he's like a cat, like, he's so mobile. But I find that Pant does a similar thing, but he gets himself stuck and then isn't always quite able to get out of the positions in order to move effectively. Stood up, I find, if you ever watch a slow-mo of his hands, start here, come up, they start here, come apart, and then sort of work their way back together, which of course he can do because he trains endlessly, catches hundreds of balls each day, but not a great thing to be able to use as an example to be able to coach someone.
Yeah.
Because, he's found something that works for him, which is fantastic, but his hands are, apart. There was one, I did an analysis of one of Ashwin's balls. It was a carom ball and it's gone the other way and it's just gone straight between his hands. And, if I had 20 minutes with him, I'd love to say, mate, just put your hands together. But yeah, no, taking nothing from him. Pant is still a very good keeper. But I feel probably Kishan probably the better technically of the two. But again, who am I to say that?
You're the wicket keeping coach, mate. You're allowed to say anything you want. But there's obviously a demand for Kishan if he's going at that kind of price. I say I'm the same with the IPL. I had a couple of the girls ask me who I'd support, and funnily enough, their choice was based on kit colour.
That's important.
I tend to just look at the players. I quite like Mumbai this year, just because they've got who have they got? They have got Archer and Timar Mills representing England. Now this new Australian guy, Tim David,
yes,
born player who absolutely bombs it. So he'll be quite interesting.
He scored a ton, didn't he, with Surrey last year? Just launched him everywhere.
Who else have they got? Obviously, they've got Rohit Sharma, Bumrah, Surya Kumar Yadav is a very good player. But also they've got this the baby AB they call him, the World Brevis, the guy who scored a load of runs.
The under 19, didn't he? The World Cup.
So it'd be amazing to see how he goes. I think that's the first time that's ever happened, really. Yeah, it'd be an interesting tournament. I don't tend to watch much of it, but hopefully I'm going to try this year. Probably need to, actually, if I'm going to talk about it.
To be fair, I think basing good teams on their kit is important. It was a toss up between the Southern Brave and their Pom Bear sponsorship last year, and the Manchester Originals with their McCoys, because I really love crisps, and McCoys, there aren't many better.
No,
but Pom Bears are an absolute classic.
It was an unbelievable marketing strategy from the ECB and 100 there. Spirit had Tyrrells, KP Nuts, hula hoops. The Welsh had hula hoops. Unbelievable. Butter Kiss. I don't think you'd ever see any other competition with snacks and crisps as a sponsor.
Important.
If that was the best thing,
we didn't know we needed until then.
There you go. If that was the best thing about the 100, that was the sponsors. I'm going to move on to the two little segments that I like to do just to finish the podcast off. The first one is it's called Breakfast Club. So you are going to go for breakfast with 3 other cricketers, past or present. I can have a guess and think they might be wicket keepers. Who are you going with?
I reckon Bruce French is one. And now they probably will be wicket keepers, actually. Thinking about it. So nerdy. Bruce French definitely one. I reckon probably Michael Bates. Used to play for Hampshire.
Yes.
I know Batesy quite well. So it'd just be nice to catch up more than anything. As well as talk keeping. Last one. I'd love it to be someone different. I would have said Kevin Peterson, because like those 2005 Ashes were the reason why I started playing cricket. But as I got older, he started to sort of post some some controversial things at times. So it probably wouldn't be him. We'll go James Foster as well. We'll make it a keeping trio. Mainly so we could just talk about coaching all the time. Just keeping coaching. I'm sure there's plenty of other people that other people would have suggested, but no, keep it to coaching. Keep it to wicket keeping.
Yeah, it's your breakfast club, mate. You get to choose. That's the beauty of it.
And we're going to a Toby Carvery, so I can go up at least twice, maybe 3 times. If there's a Yorkshire pudding in that breakfast as well, even better.
Oh, sounds like the dream.
I think more about food than I do of the keeping itself. Hey, but you've gone there for a morning. You're going to make sure you go to the right place.
You need a big feed for a day of keeping. And finally, the podcast will get to know my love for racehorses and for horse racing. I'm very excited. I'm going to Cheltenham in a month. So I'm counting down the days. I'm not that sad, really. But so, Josh, to finish, if you had a racehorse, what are you calling it?
So I reckon I'd call it Watch Me Nay Nay.
Watch Me.
I think it's an appropriate name. It's either that or something along the lines of making the commentator or the whoever's sort of commenting on the race just sort of say something silly. I remember that I think there was one called "And I Still Wet the Bed." So he just had to constantly say that over and over again. But we'll go with Watch Me Nay Nay.
I like it.
Modern.
Yeah, I can imagine Watch Me Nay Nay climb up the Cheltenham Hill, get over the last, make a few punters happy.
There you go.
I like it. What we're going to do, we're going to have a Behind the Grill podcast leaderboard, and we're going to let the viewers vote on who we think the favourite racehorse is, and then maybe one day, if I get rich enough, then we'll buy a Behind the Grill podcast racehorse.
There you go.
That's the dream. But for now, we'll stick with this. Josh, thank you very much for your time.
Hey, pleasure.
I've learnt loads. I've honestly learnt loads, and hopefully any keepers out there that want to listen in, and you're going to learn loads if you listen in. keep doing what you do, mate. The Insta page is great. I love your content on there, so keep doing what you're doing. But yeah, guys, thank you very much for watching or listening, and catch you on the next one. Cheers.
Cheers.